Hello and welcome to NJ Thrive Small Business Webinars. Today is Thursday, June 13th. You are attending one of our weekly webinars created to help New Jersey small business owners start, grow, and thrive. Welcome. Thank you for attending. Thank you for joining us today. We're in for an exciting but very much needed topic. So thank you for joining us. I expect lots of questions today. I expect lots of engagement because this is one of those topics that always gets lots of questions on throughout the year. So I hope you're all ready with your pen and paper, ready to take notes and ask lots of questions. I am your host. My name is Uzma Sheikh. I'm a consultant here at New Jersey Small Business Development Centers, NJSBDC. We're a network and statewide program powered by the SBA, Small Business Administration, and partners to help small businesses in New Jersey with 3 things. And those things are no-cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, and exclusive small business resources. If you'd like to learn more about our organization, where our 11 regional centers are located, as you can see on the map there, go to njsbdc.com, find out more. In the chat, if you'd like, please let us know where you're from, of course, how you're doing, but where in New Jersey you're joining us from, if it's in New Jersey, how you maybe heard about this webinar, what you'd like to learn, anything you'd like to share, feel free to network in our chat. Now, what is on the agenda? We have a couple of headlines I'd like to share before we get started, right before the presentation. Then we have the presentation, then we have our Q&A session with our speaker. So these are the small business headlines of the week. I will go through them very briefly at the moment. All the links will be shared in the chat by our webinar assistant, and you can look through them on your own. So these are just some things that we want our small business community to be in the know of, the events that are happening or may be happening soon. The first is a press release from the SBA, Small Business Administration. Always keep an eye out. We usually share a lot of different things throughout our newsletter, throughout the week, in our newsletter, through our webinars. So first is a press release that says Biden-Harris small business boom continues with historic 18 million new business applications filed. More business applications filed under President Biden than any president in American history. All right, let's see, 18 million new business applications. We said that. American business owners have demonstrated incredible dynamism, tenacity, and optimism, said SB Administrator Guzman, leveling the playing field, making historic investments in America. Let's see, what else? There have been 443,000 filled each month, a rate over 90% faster than pre-pandemic averages. And as we always say, small businesses are the backbone of our economy. So that's always good news. Again, another press release from the SBA. SBA announces $30 million in grant funding for new women's business centers. Under this administration, SBA has expanded WBCs to over 150 nationwide in all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. Okay, 4 funding opportunities, WBCs totaling $30 million. This includes funding to support further expansion of the WBC network, opening of WBC in the Virgin Islands, first-time specialized funding for WBCs that specialize in contracting childcare businesses. Pretty cool stuff, and these are the funding opportunities that this award includes. So government contracting, providing childcare services, entrepreneurial development services to women. All right, pretty cool. WBCs, WCEC, for example, there are great partners. So if any time for some sort of reason we cannot help you, we're always more than happy to refer them to our partner organizations, like the WCC that we have here in New Jersey. All right, NJEDA, another great resource for you as a small business owner to know about. New Jersey Economic Development Authority press release on June 11, 2 days ago. Governor Murphy announces planned Aerospace Innovation Center in Atlantic County. All right, this Aerospace Innovation Center will be the 5th strategic innovation center in the state. will support state-of-the-art aerospace research and innovation. Okay, let's see. What are some of the things that jump out? Located, okay, so this is National Aerospace Research and Technology Park in Egg Harbor Township. The AIC will provide the research spaces, high-speed connectivity to the FAA, data systems and labs, co-working and studio spaces. Pretty cool. So it is still intended, so it will open. I'm sure when it opens, we will have news on exactly where it is, things like that. All right, let's go to our last headline. Tech Connect World Innovation Conference and Expo, June 17th to 19th, 2024, happening in Washington, D.C. So, all right, so if you are a tech company, and that just doesn't mean like a technology company, but you are someone, for example, who's innovated in R&D, who is interested, excuse me, in R&D. For example, if you're interested in SBI or CPR, definitely check this out. This is a 2-day in-person expo and conference, and they have all the details on this website over here. So check it out. All right, so that concludes our headlines. Moving on, some housekeeping rules that we like everyone to be mindful of. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A box that is right next to the chat box. Make sure that when you are sharing things in the chat, unless those comments or anything, those specific thing, the message that you're sending, unless that is specifically for me, our webinar assistant, or our speaker, share that with hosts and panelists, but make sure that you're sharing everything with everyone from the drop down in the messages, not just hosts and panelists, especially if you want everyone to see it. And I am seeing all these messages. Thank you so much for responding and networking in the chat. All right, so completing 3-minute survey. If you do that, the link has been shared. You get the slides that our speaker will be sharing. And this webinar is being recorded. If you have to leave halfway, you'd like to give it a rewatch, the link is shared. You can also find it in our YouTube channel in a couple of days. It will be available there. All right, so we have our amazing speaker, Victor Garrido, from who's a managing member at GG CPA Services. This is for mid-year financial review, tax changes, and BOI compliance. We did have one webinar back in February of this year. We're having a mid-year check-in. Thank you, Victor, for doing this and joining us again today. I will stop sharing. Please go ahead, share your screen. Welcome and thank you. You are muted.
Yep. Thank you, Isma. Thank you so much. You know, we will talk about, as you mentioned, the mid-year financial review, some potential presidential changes, and a reminder on the BOI. So, you know, but as you mentioned, let's make it interactive. You know, we will be more than happy to address your questions. I know this might be a complicated subject. So hopefully you're seeing the screen.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let's go. So first of all, there's a disclaimer. Let me see how. Just that I work with different organizations. I'm collaborating in this case. This is just training materials and are for educational purposes. So always consult with a tax professional, enroll agent, CPA, lawyer, or whoever you're working with, because each case is different. So it's always good to know, you know, this is general information. It might be applicable to your case, but, you know, it's just for educational purposes. So this guy is me, maybe with a little more hair, now a little less hair, but it's summer, so it's hot. You know, I worked for a Big Four for a number of years. I work with like my other partners at GG CPA Services, which is a CPA firm, at Bryan Sigrimer and Associates, and another of our firms. I like to study, I like to read. I have been getting lately a few recognitions. You know, one of them is the top CPA by Forbes, which I'm really proud of. And we are doing other endeavors, like the Mentor CPA will be soon. Like on social media, we see a lot of disinformation and recommendations that are not right. So I think we we will be providing some information through the Mentor CPA, just educational purposes, things that apply to business owners, just to keep them informed, don't fall on scams. We see way too many scams. So, just so we just get good information, and, hopefully you will get a great return on investment. These are changes. These are official changes for like personal tax returns, for 2024. As every year, the tax brackets, retirement contributions change. So just make sure that whenever you're contributing to your 401k, 403b, or any other, you're contributed up to the maximum amount that is available in 2024, which is $23,000 for 401k. If you're over 50 years old, you have a catch-up of $7,500. Child credit increase, there were like a lot of discussion early on this year. At the end of the day, nothing was passed through Congress. We will see, depending on the candidate, what is going to happen to the child credit. And then the energy vehicles and energy credits, I think that's really positive. With clean energy, electric vehicle, if you meet the income requirements, and it depends also where the car was made and where the materials were generated from. So those are like some of the items that you might have to consider. And then interesting, there's always, once you're really good with electric vehicles and you incentivize the use of electric vehicles, and you give like the $7,500 federal, tax credit, and when you give like other incentive at the state level. So just couple of weeks ago, they were like in the news how California, there were not enough gas revenue. So now, they are trying to change because they are reducing the revenues from gas. They are changing to potentially assisting on miles driven by individuals, just because otherwise they are missing part of the revenue. So they were really good implementing the EV in California, relatively good, but now they are not getting enough taxes, and they are figuring out another way just to tax Californians. So I think it was interesting just to mention that. And then for businesses for 2024, not that many changes, because the Trump policies will expire in 2025. But it's important to keep in mind that the 1099 that was delayed this year, and it could be the 1099 case just for merchant processors or other providers. Before it was $20,000, that anything under and less than 200 transactions was not reported. Now that threshold went down to $5,000 in 2024. They are considering $600 going forward. So keep in mind all the Venmo, PayPal, credit cards, processors, and things like that. Sell is excluded, because sell is just an ACH transaction from one bank account to another. So there's not a merchant or a third party in between those funds. But all those, be careful if you get money back and forth with friends, family, because potentially they will release a 1099-K at the end of the year if you transfer or receive more than $5,000 in 2024. That might change. Last year it changed just before year end, but just keep in mind that right now the threshold will be $5,000. Also, for the 1099, if you're a business owner, we are seeing, and last summer I had a lot of cases in US Tax Court, where, for example, if you're a restaurant and you get DoorDash, GrabHub, any of these third-party vendors, sometimes they release a 1099 to you, and they might release a 1099, let's suppose, for $1 million. But truly, in your bank account, you only got $700, and the reason they released that $1 million is because it's gross receipt, but you already paid delivery fees, merchant fees, sales tax. So we have a few cases where, like, the client reported, we inherited these cases. They either didn't receive the 1099 or claimed that they didn't know. What they reported maybe $800,000 in revenue in the tax return, but then in the 1099-K from these companies, they reported $1 million. So the IRS didn't even open an audit. Automatically, they send a notice of deficiency saying, hey, either you pay me this $200,000 in revenue because you reported 800, third parties reported 1 million, and they say, hey, either you pay me taxes on that 200,000, or otherwise, you have to go to US tax court. And we prove to the US tax court, hey, they should been like reported $1 million, right, in revenues. They should have been additional expenses like merchant fees and so on. So the net is the same. There's no more taxes to be paid. But we have seen it like quite often. It started last year with more enforcement from the IRS. They got 80 billion, maybe 60 billion. In the strategic plan, the last one, it was 103 billion, what they are expected to get over the next few years. So just to keep in mind that potentially there are going to be more notices around and how to avoid them. And then last year already the depreciation bonus was reduced to 80%. This year, 2024, will be 60%. Keep in mind that you still have Section 179, so you can still depreciate for certain equipments and so on. You can depreciate 100%. It just flows different on the pass-through entities, so you have to be careful on that, but there's still like the possibility through Section 179 to deduct 100% of that cost for certain items. So those are more or less the main changes at the individual and at the business level for 2024. Those are like the last couple of slides. Those are like true changes that will happen. Any questions? Glorimer or Uzma, I don't see the chat or anyone.
We don't have any questions at the moment, Victor.
Okay, perfect.
So
Just
we can
to make sure.
definitely, whenever they come in, when we're done with the presentation, when they come in, we can address them at that time.
Okay, perfect. So then I will wait.
Yep.
So another item that is extremely important for New Jersey businesses, and I was reading the chat before, and some of you are from New Jersey, is to make sure that you are aware of the New Jersey BAIT program. This is a great program where you can pay taxes on pass-through entities through the company. So the company pays your New Jersey taxes on the net profit of the business. And then it is a tax deduction at the federal level. So let's suppose I make $100,000 this year, and my tax rate for New Jersey will be 8%, so it's $8,000 that I owe New Jersey. So I could join this program. There's like certain procedures that you have to meet, and I could pay that $8,000 to New Jersey through the New Jersey BAIT program. And then in my profit and loss of my business, I can put that as an expense. So I will have like $8,000 of New Jersey BAIT money paid to the for IRS. Instead of making 100,000 of net income, now I will make 92. For New Jersey, I will still make 100,000. But what is important is if like I put that $8,000 as a deduction in my federal tax return, I could be saving, let's suppose, 20-30% of that money. So on $8,000 is almost like $2,500 or something like that I will be saving just for using that program. So that's something that a lot of New Jersey businesses still are not aware. This is not a new program. This is happening since 2020, and happened because of limitation. I think the first one that state that got approved by the IRS probably was Maine. I don't remember exactly, but after one of them got approval just to this pass-through program by the IRS, all the other states little by little have been like copying like kind of the documentation submitted to the IRS, getting approval, and I think there are probably 20 or 30 states these days. So keep in mind it's a great way just to save money, and the tax bracket as of right now, the maximum is 37%, so you could be saving up to 37% of that money that you're using to pay taxes to New Jersey. So keep it in mind, discuss with your tax professional just to make sure that you're taking those advantages, like legally, that you could be using in your business. So as your business owner, a few errors or red flags that we see for clients or like referrals is usually, on individuals, the married filing separately versus the married filing jointly. Usually jointly is better, but it depends. I mean, the software that we use generates a calculation and sees which is better, but sometimes we see inadequate tax returns. Credit tax deduction, you might not be aware of some of the credits like child credit, earned income. Some of the taxpayers that they are entitled, they don't claim it, or they don't know, or they don't report like everything. For business owners, when they report on a Schedule C, independent contractors or hobby, like sometimes hobby activity is disallowed expenses. So, you know, if it's a hobby, then you shouldn't be deducting. It's not real activity. But if you have a real activity, sometimes they report the income or you receive a 1099, but then don't report the expenses or enough expenses related to the business activity, and you end up paying more in taxes than you should. So that we see it quite often, not getting enough tax. So the 1099 arrives, but they don't put like the expenses. If you get an IRS notice or an audit or a state notice, we see an increase on a state notice, and myself, we were talking before, just read it, prepare the support documentation to address it, and reply. Don't wait on it. Just try to reply as soon as possible. If you're not sure, reach out to your tax professional or reach out to someone else. Sometimes if the tax professional that you're working generated the problem, might not be the best person to help you. Sometimes we have like experiences where like suddenly the taxpayer call us and say, hey, just the tax professional called me and just told me to show up in their office and just to sign a document. So be careful what you're signing, especially in audits. I see like that happening to different people. Like I didn't even know what I was like signing. And sometimes what they do, these tax preparers, is just to avoid them going, the IRS or the tax authorities going after them and opening other clients. They just settle on your case for whatever, and you're paying instead of like the tax preparer that generated the issue or was claiming things that shouldn't have been claimed, and they just don't want like to extend the audit. Like potentially we have seen, and you read it on articles or see it in the news, how they go after certain tax preparer when like consistently they have been doing wrong tax returns for several people. So, and they have sometimes the case against them. So just be careful on that. Don't wait on notices. And for businesses, a lot of things that we see more often is the inadequate tax structure. Corporations like C corporations sometimes is not the best, even if now like in social media that sometimes they say, oh, they pay less taxes. Well, there's a double taxation and you cannot use the corporation just as you want. Sometimes we see a lot of structure like several LLCs, things like that, but there's commingling funds. The accounting is not done properly. So the IRS can like put it all together, because if there are loans from one entity to another, there's no loan agreement, there's no interest being paid, there's no payments, and it's a mess. And it just, the IRS could say, hey, like, you know, pierce the corporate veil and go after everything like together, or going after the owners. Fines and penalties, a lot of like taxes when they are filed either late and not adequately estimated tax payments. QBID, as I mentioned, that was like from 2018, you can get an extra 20% deduction. And then lately we have been seeing since the last year, a lot of notices, a lot of IRS audit, state audits, a lot of notices just going out automatically. They changed something in the software, and anything over, I don't know, $1,000 of refund, they might ask for verification or additional documentation. Not sure if it is because identity theft going on, or because they are playing a little hard to get sometimes. But we have seen an increase. I don't know if they got more funding too for enforcement. So just keep that in mind as we see more notices, and sometimes you just have to reply to the notice, explain what happened, to get your refund, or sometimes just to ask. So many in New Jersey is really good. The revenue department, the Department of Treasury, is like to remove penalties if there's a good reason, is just to request an abatement. The interest will not remove usually, but penalties, you know, if you explain what happened in the case, that's usually you will get it. So that's something that we recommend to business owners, you know. And then I think the BOI, we talked about it back in February. Uzma was right. I don't remember, like tax season is kind of complicated. So I'm not sure if I'm doing these conferences and these trainings in January, February. But BOI, hopefully you all know at this point what it is. It is a new requirement by FinCen. FinCen is part of Treasury, but it's not IRS. So FinCen is the Financial Crimes and Network, you know. So what happens is with FinCen, they approve back like, you know, in 2021, it was a bipartisan, it was the Corporate Transparency Act. And it's just to get information who is behind the businesses. So they want to know who is behind the businesses. So they are asking you to report who the beneficial owner is. And it might be who has the shares or might be who takes decisions on behalf of the company. So I hope like for micro and small business, it should be whoever owns. But, you know, we should discuss because there have been some changes since last time I spoke. So what is the current status on the CTA, on the BOI beneficial ownership interest? So in March 1st, a federal judge said that it was unconstitutional. However, this, you know, this court declaratory judgment, it only impacted the plaintiffs. So it's not unconstitutional to all of us. And then we know that there are at least 3 other challenges, like 3 other, like in Ohio, Michigan, and Maine, that they file and they are asking it to declare unconstitutional. Could give more details, but they consider that, you know, the Commerce Clause does not allow Congress to just regulate an entire class of entities. So, you know, and the word commerce is nowhere in the CTA, in the Corporate Transparency Act. So there are different reasons why the judge ruled that it was unconstitutional. However, FinCen has still provided like a calendar from this summer to next summer, how this organization is going to make it available to other foreign governments, to sorry, to other departments. So our recommendation, you know, sorry for that. So our recommendation has been just to, when in doubt, file. The penalty is around $591. So a day. So, you know, hopefully you would agree is better just to file. And I will show you how, but just do it just in case. And that way, either if it's unconstitutional or not, you have already done it and there's no fine. So more or less what happens is it divides the companies into 2. And you can see our last presentation, the recording is there. So I'm going to summarize it and then address any questions. But, you know, the FinCen is, as I mentioned, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. So what happens is it divides in 2 the companies. The companies created before 2024. So if your business was operating already before 2024, you have the EIN, it was registered at the state level. Then you have until the end of this year to register. So if your company was before 1/1/24, you have until the end of this year, 12/31/24, to register in FinCen. Don't wait until the end. If your company was created this year in 2024, then you have 90 days from the moment you register the company at the state level. So that's something that I think you should consider. And usually, if there are changes on the report, you will have to do it in like 30 days. So just use more or less the 30 days. It gets the FAQ gives like 90 and 30, but I think like the 30 days is the right amount. You know, if you change ownerships, right? Like you get another owner in the business, and I was 100%, and later on I'm 50% and 50%, I will have like 30 days just to make those changes. So, you know, it's something for you to consider on who is reporting. And I have to mention, you know, here, like the money laundering and everything. So that's pretty important. We have been filing our companies. We have recommended our clients to do it. CPAs right now, we are waiting for New Jersey CPA Society to mention if it is an authorized practice of law or unauthorized practice on law. So we are waiting. We have been providing information to our clients and even how to do it. And until we don't get a resolution, sometimes the business liability insurance for CPAs, they are not covering this, just because the liability is huge, right? Like if I don't file that 591 and I'm for a whole year, I'm in the hole for 125,000. So I think it's quite risky. And some people, they don't want to do it, even lawyers. So this is what I mentioned before. If your entity was created before 1/1/24, you have until the end of the year. If like after 12/31 or it was created in 2024, you have 90 days in this first year and then 30 days going forward. So we can discuss more in depth. And then the definition of beneficial owner, just because like some people are not even sure, it means like control of 25% at least, but it could be also indirect control. So let's suppose if my wife decides where I open my new office, how do I hire and whatever, it could be, it takes like management decision of the companies, could be considered a beneficial owner. So I will be careful because it can get like really complicated. So each case is different. Once they are trusts, different entities, minors, for small businesses, micro business, usually the one that owns the business is the one that has the control, but they could be other parties. And that is what, like for money laundering and similar are things to keep in mind. And some businesses, they don't have to do it. So as in every single rule, there is an exemption list. Usually like bigger companies that are already registered with the SEC, with government authorities and things like that, they already know. So they are not asking them to do it again. Or if they are like big enough, they are not asking who is behind or who is the beneficial owner. Just be careful on, when you read the exemption and go to the details. It's a really good FAQ that they created. And you can see, like, for example, for accounting firms, Victor, that's your firm or your firms going to apply. Well, we are not, because it requires to be a public accounting firm following Sarbanes-Oxley. So that's not our case. So even if you see like an exemption, accounting firm is my bookkeeping business or my CPA or my enroll agent, well, unless you're a really specific type, then that exception does not apply to you. So just be careful. They made it a little too complicated, as everything with government in general, tax code and so on. And this is FinCen, is not related to the tax code, but I will be careful with it. Then even for the inactive entity, so when you say, my entity is inactive, well, you have to follow these 6 items. It wasn't existing before January 2020. It's not engaged in business. It has been no like transactions 0.5 of $1,000, in the last 12-month period. So just be careful, even if there was a transaction, you're getting money out of the loan that you granted the entity, then it's no longer inactive. So in doubt, our recommendation is to file the BOI. So usually how it works is you just follow a decision trees. There are several online. If the company was registered in United States at the state, like in New Jersey or any other state, you probably have to register for BOI. If the company is active, again, you have to register for BOI. And then when it's like large operating company that you have more than 20 full-time employees and more than $5 million in sales, then you don't have to. But just be careful, because if your company goes down and suddenly you have 18 full-time employees, then at that point it triggers the registration. So it's just important to know that if something changes in the future, you're required to register. The same that if there are changes, you are required to register. So as I mentioned before, this is a complex area they release. Interesting. If you do your BOI and register in the BOI, just make sure you save the PDF, because as of right now, they have not figured out how to get that report back. So they are still working on it. And many professionals, as I mentioned, they are not like providing services on this. Some of us are educating and helping our clients. But like some of them, they don't want to touch it. The risk is way too high on this subject. And then there are some official resources. Last time we recorded how to register and how to file the BOI. It takes 5 minutes. We see a lot of scam on people paying like thousands of dollars or several $100 on things that you can do it yourself. And it's not complicated. You will have to have the business information, EIN, address. You will have to have the beneficial owner information, either passport or driving license. Put that information and it's relatively easy. It's maybe 2 to 5 minute process. But we have seen a scam on the small business community. Just someone say, you know, if you don't pay me this to do you know, this registration, you're going to be subject to fines of 591. So, you know, pay me $600, $1,000. Unfortunately, different chambers of commerce, SBDC and IRS and others have been like mentioning cases that they have been seeing in the small business community, unfortunately. So this is really good what like New Jersey SBDC is doing, Glory Man Nusma is doing, because it keeps you informed so you don't fall into these scams. And then we can do an example for educational purposes, but I wanna like leave it open for you for questions. You know, there's always you know, in these trainings and discussion, is always good for you if you have any questions. You know, and those are our companies that you can follow. The Mentor CPA, we will be providing like social advice, just educational purpose. So, you know, just to fight that bad advice that we find so many times on social media. So, you know, any questions at this point?
We do have questions, Victor. I would say that maybe have your, just in case you want to go back to the slides for the questions, feel free to reshare your screen again if needed for the questions. Got muted again.
Yep, I'm doing it. I just put the screen. Hopefully you can see it.
Yep. And we can go back on the first maybe in the beginning, or if you want to, we can keep it here. All right, so with the questions that we have, we do have some questions in the Q&A, a couple I think in the chat. So once we're done with the Q&A box, we'll jump over to the chat box. Okay, so first we'll go in the order that we received them.
Okay.
First question is from Eugenia. What do I do if payroll company did not file 1099s with either the state or the IRS?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So the 1099 should have been filed by the end of January, January 31st, 2024, for the 2023 tax year. If you have not filed, I would recommend filing. I think if you have more than 5, my team might know better than me. If you have more than 5, you have to electronically file those 1099s. You might be subject to some penalties. So as a CPA enroll agent, I have to tell you, you're required to file. You know, I mean, the thing is, you're required to file, unfortunately. So fine, like you can electronically file, you might get like some fines. And the thing is, like, also for the 1099, it's important for the provider to have that information because they are going to file taxes. So that's the reason they make it like that deadline is so short. It's only 1 month after the end of the fiscal year, is for the IRS to have that information. So when people file their taxes or the business taxes, they already have that 1099 and they know what the gross revenues or gross receipts are.
Got it. Thank you. And before we move on to the next question, I know Victor said this earlier, but I also just want to say it again. Please consult your own CPA, your own bookkeeper, your own accountant. Please take this webinar and Victor's answers for educational purposes. Our intention is for educational purposes. It is not personal commentary. It is not personal advice. Please use this as an informational session on information that is available to our to the public. And if there are any specific questions, then you can always consult. You can always come in to our NJSBDC counseling sessions, and we can also advise you. But again, we always say, please consult your own bookkeeper, your accountant, CPA for tailored advice.
Yeah, and you can see, you know, someone. You know, I have a friend that has this issue. just because these are recorded, and I know Uzma is not giving names, but I would say one of my friends has this issue. You know, when I like trainings on conference or classes, especially the ones that are recorded. You know, I know a friend that has this issue. I will never say like names or clients' names or whatever. Just be really careful.
Yep. Next question is from Ruben. Is there a limit for auto purchase price?
You could buy, no, I mean, there's no limit. I mean, the IRS, you have to follow the ordinary and necessary expense. So you can buy a $10,000 car, or you can buy a $80,000 car, or you could buy like one of our three service companies bought like equipment for like 200,000 or 250. You know, just to you know, a big truck with all the different things, you know, or like a farm, it could buy like a 300,000 truck, or an HVAC company. Sometimes the cars that they need to get like really big for services are 150,000. So there's no limit on how much you can spend on the business. It's more the nature of the service that you're providing with the business to make sure that it's business related. So if I buy $100,000, and I see in social media and whatever, people lie to you that, oh, if you take a picture, then it's tax deductible. Or if you record your videos inside the car, it's tax deductible. So usually they follow the mileage, okay? And they follow the really like business use. I'm going to see clients, I have registered, like it's something like reasonable. You know, that's what like the IRS, but there's no limit on expenses. They care about like that expense should be business related.
Thank you. Next question is from Claudia. If I participate in the BAIT program, how does this impact my Social Security benefits in the long run as income earned?
So there should be no impact. Like you're still like, I mean, I don't know. So I will go get a step back. So I'm not sure exactly the case, right? Social Security benefits, if you make less than a certain money, is not taxable. But once you start making more and more money, it will get taxed at about like 80%. It gets taxed up to 80% of the social benefit is just considered income. Having said that, the fact of using BAIT, New Jersey BAIT, that is a state program, and reduction of the federal taxes, because it's another deduction, it should not impact on Social Security benefits unless you're suddenly now reporting. If you're reporting at the federal level, you're reporting more expenses, so your net income goes down, so probably it will be taxed either zero or less than it was before, because you're adding another expense at the federal level.
Got it. Next question related to that is, does New York have the BAIT program?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Yes. Each state, I will check. I mean, we have clients in 40 states or something like that, and each state is different. How you register, how you submit payments. But yes, they have, which is like some of our clients take advantage of it.
Next question is from Anonymous. If the person has ITIN, they don't qualify for a child tax credit if they file Schedule C. Is that the case?
So I will have to check. I mean, it depends. The ITINs in general, they have restrictions with earned income credit. I will have to see exactly the case and how it works, because with Trump, it changed. Before, you used to get like more income credits. Depends on the dependent. If the dependent has Social Security, there are certain credits that flow, but it might be restricted. It depends. I will have to run the calculations on that.
A bit. Next one is from Anonymous. BOI needs to have a beneficiary, or do I just put the owner for a beneficiary?
So let's suppose that in the business is 100% owned by Uzma. Let's use Uzma as the example. Then the beneficiary, unless USMA is not taking the management decision, will be USMA that you report as 100%. If it will be USMA and Glorimer that is just hiding, you know, in like the presentation 50-50 because they are like over that 25%, both of them will be reported and you will have to include like their names, address, driving license, passport, but you will report anyone like with the 25% threshold.
Got it. Next question. If you are a licensed professional with less than 2 employees, do you still need to file a report? Can you clarify who needs to file as BOI?
Yep, I can clarify. Like, well, licensed professional or not licensed professional, if you have a business and you don't meet any of the exemptions, and we mentioned briefly on our presentation, and it was mentioned also like a few months ago, then you have to file. I mean, once you register the entity at the state level, and really like the BOI is registered at the state level, but then for BOI purposes, it asks for your EIN. I mean, one of the options is for your business to register under your EIN. So once you have a business in operations, I will see, and you don't make more than the 5 million and have like more than the 20 employees that I mentioned before, then you should be registering for BOI. I mean, the hope is that it's declared unconstitutional for everyone, and then we don't have to do it. But I don't know if that is going to happen today, tomorrow, in a year from now, or it might never happen. So at that point, I would rather like file the BOI, not be subject to the fine in case they enforce it. FinCen is not, they don't enforce too much. FinCen is the same organization that they do the F-bar when you have foreign bank accounts on an aggregate value of more than $10,000. So, but, you know, I will do it just in case. It's just a compliance measure.
Got it. Next question is from Jen. Jen says, I tried to fill out the information for my BOI. I don't have Adobe to download the form. Will I have to print it out and mail it?
There are two options. So one is you can do it on a PDF form, which I do not recommend because then you have to mail it, and that's completely right. You can fill out the PDF. The option just below that is the electronic filing of the BOI, which is much easier, and you just do it on your computer. It takes like 2 minutes, so you don't have to be printing forms and doing everything. You just submit it. At the end, when you submit it, it will open a page. I mean, one of like the next step, right? It will show you the link, and you can like click it and download the form. So we highly recommend just to do it on your computer, electronically file the BOI. Don't just mail it. I mean, the problem right now with mailing is that you cannot contact them as of today, right? Like June 13, I'm not aware, and you don't know if they receive it, if they process. It may be something that you filed was wrong and is rejected. Not sure if they are letting you know. So right now you cannot even access what you did electronically. So to me, it would be better to have the confirmation in my computer, print to PDF or whatever you're doing, or just print it in your printer, keep it, and you know that there was a confirmation that you filed the BOI. But electronically, we highly recommend electronically, even for tax returns, electronic file to tax authorities. Paper file, it can take like a year and a half. We were like in last meeting with the IRS, they say 6 months. Usually it's a year or a little more. So I will use the electronic filing all the time. It's a much better way.
So you're saying it's just an application on the website itself that you can just submit?
Yep, like we did it in the previous recording. You go to the FinCen BOI, you can click, and there are two options. One like the PDF, so that's absolutely correct. And the second option is a big icon, both of them, and it's just electronically submit the BOI. I mean, we can show it right now if you want. I can share my screen.
Yeah, let's do a quick.
Let's do a quick reminder of like you know, that let's do something here. Let me do. Are you still seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so well, you can see. So you can file the BOI. I mean, it should be one of my favorites. So you know, you can do. You have different information BOI filing, and it was part of my presentation. you can click like file BOR, and these are the two options that I mentioned. See the file PDF BOR, and then the other one is file online BOR. And then if you click here, it gets you to the website. You just click on initial report like we did in January or February 2024. Get the information, right? Like that is just the filing, initial report, reporting company. You can request to receive the FinCen. Reporting name is just the name of your company. If there's a DBA there, the tax identification is EIN or any other one, okay? But EIN for your company, include the EIN. Where it was like created, if you register with Delaware or New Jersey or whatever it is, the information, the address of the business. Then the company applicant is only applicable to companies registered from 1/1/24. So only the companies. But if yours is before, see, if it's before, it's an existing company, then you don't have to fill out anything here, okay? And then the beneficial owner is super easy. You can add more beneficial owners, but you can just include the information there. You know, the name, first name, last name, you know, and then the address, and then you have to upload one of the documents. Usually we recommend the driving license, because passport every 5 to 10 years it changes. Driving license, unless you change the state, the number, the identifying document number should not change. And then you drag it and put it on the folder, and then you just submit it, whatever it is. Agree. I mean, right now I cannot submit it, but more or less those will be the steps. And then once you submit it, then it will get you to the next page confirming, and it will include a link. So it's relatively easy. Just don't fall for scams that we see quite often.
Thank you for that, Victor.
Yeah, no problem.
A related question to that is, if Lois asks, if I close my LLC, do I need to call it an inactive entity, or can I delete the BOI?
So if you close the LLC, the first question will be, when did you close the LLC, right? Because it was in the exemption, I think it was 2020, you know, when you were like supposed to close it. So, and then you cannot really delete the BOI. I mean, once you file the BOI, that's your information on who was the owner of that company. But as of right now, there's no way to delete that information. So once you just make it inactive, close the entity, you don't operate with that entity anymore. And yeah, maybe like, you know, FinCen has the information who was the owner back then, but then, you know, it will be closed and not operating. So.
Got it. Next question is from Elizabeth. Elizabeth asks, how do you avoid double taxation?
So from a C corporations are okay in certain cases. There has to be a reason, but usually pass-through entities like LLCs, S corporations are better. The double taxation, what I mentioned on the C corporation, is because once the company makes money, it will be taxed first at 21%, right? And then that money stays in the company. If you want to take it out, you can pay dividends, or you can pay yourself wages, and then it'll be subject to Medicare, Social Security. So if you want to take out money from your C corporation and send it to your bank account, usually you have to pay dividends. Some people and some social media gurus, experts, and everything, or what they call themselves, they say, oh no, just use your C corporation paying for everything. We had audits where like they will claim, hey, the company was paying for certain things that are personal, so that should have been like dividends, and you are also subject to that as income, you know, in your individual taxes in your 1040. So I would be careful just following like social media advice. Double taxation happens when you're paying money at your entity level on a C corporation, and then you're paying money again at your personal level. You know, so that, I mean, there might be some reasons or some cases that the C corporation makes sense, but in general, for like micro or small businesses, is usually not a great. I mean, startups, you know, you're going to have over 100 shareholders, and then you're going to get investors. That might be a good reason. People with IT numbers might be a good reason, might be, you know, in certain cases. So it's just on a case by case, as Uzma like mentioned, just, you know. But usually that's the way you avoid double taxation.
Right. We are hitting our 1 p.m. mark, so we'll just take a couple more questions, just respectful of everyone's time. Next question is Thomas's. Thomas says, do Schedule C sole proprietors, such as professional service provider, have to file the FinCen report?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. Do Schedule C sole proprietors, such as a professional service provider, have to file the FinCen report?
So sole proprietor as operating with your social security number, I suppose. I mean, if you're operating under your social security number, I mean, it's different if you are a sole member LLC, but a sole proprietor is you're operating with your social security, then they already know who is operating. There's no entity in between you and the. So there's, you know, BOI is for entities, just to know who is behind your entities, but no one hiding behind your social security when you're filing that way.
Got it. Thank you.
Or less. Hopefully, like that's yeah. Any other questions or items? I mean, I'm more than
Yes.
happy
We
to
do have-
continue addressing like items.
Yeah, we do have a couple more questions. Are you good to take them? Should we continue?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Got it.
I will be happy. Yeah, I don't want anyone to get in trouble. So, you know, and Uzma keeps me like, it's the one keeping me with the timer. So, but yeah, I'm more than
Yes.
happy. I will be happy to continue.
Perfect. All right, so next question is also from Elizabeth. Could you explain more about the income paid or received through Venmo, Zelle, etc., that must be reported on a 1099 form?
Okay, so sale will not be reported on a 1099-K, okay? Because sale is just, I'm going from a bank account, right, to another bank account. So the IRS or any tax authority will see that transaction, okay? So that will not be reported sale on a 1099-K. But if Victor Garrido pays $1,000 to Uzma just because, you know, for a restaurant or like a soccer team, right? And I got asked this recently for my financial advisor license, like, what is this money? And I get like transaction from Venmo. Oh, you pay like the with your credit card, you get the points, and then we split the bill, right? So let's suppose I do that several times during the year. So every month, like I pay for $1,000 restaurant meal with my friends, and they Venmo me. So at the end of the year, I'm going to get at least $12,000 of people that gave me, you know, money. Sorry. So what is going to happen is Venmo is going to be required to send me. Venmo is going to send me a 1099 to Victor Garrido, and he's going to send another 1099-K to the IRS. So when I file my tax return, the IRS is going to know Victor Garrido got $12,000. You know, like if you had a side business or whatever it is, and you use a merchant processor like a credit card company. So what is going to happen is probably you will have to create an Schedule C and report like the income that is not really income to you and the expense. So it nets to zero. Hey, it was restaurant expenses with friend, or it was like in my case, like it is like money for like my soccer team, because different players give me the fees, and then maybe I have to pay for like the soccer league. So suddenly it's not like I was making money, but I could potentially get a 1099-K. If you don't report, if you get a 1099-K and you file your taxes and don't report that income, if you get the income and expenses, they offset each other. But if you don't file, like you file and you forget about that 1099, then the IRS is going to send you a letter with a notice of deficiency or something like that, saying, hey, you know, we have a third party, and it's going to say what like that third party is that reported that you have here in your tax return was zero. This is the adjustment, right? $12,000. So pay us taxes in $12,000 because you didn't report anything. So I will be careful. I mean, this is not final. There's always time until the end of the year maybe to change it, because the threshold is really low. I mean, $5,000 is relatively low for transaction during the whole year. And the fact that they are going to trying to put it at $600 going forward, I think for us is extremely low. But you know, if they set up regulation or they set up like BOI requirement, we just have to comply with it.
Okay, next question, we'll move on to Elizabeth. Do nonprofits need to register for BOI?
That's a great question. And let me check. Let me see the exemptions. Tax exempt entity. I see tax exempt like 503Cs and whatever, 501(3) entities is tax exempt entity. So non-for-profit, no, that's part of the exemption list.
Okay, so they don't have to register for BOI.
No, based on the exemption list, I mean, I will see the details on the tax exempt entity, and I'm going to open like FAQ, but like from what it seems, exemption, tax exempt. Yep, that's you know, that's what I see as no. I'm checking, you know, I can address more questions, but I'm checking just to triple check.
Yep.
Okay, so I have here, I'm going to share with you. Do you see it?
Yes.
I'm going to make it bigger. Oh, made it too big. Sorry, one sec. Yeah. All right. So you have to follow the 4 criteria. And to be honest, FinCen did great on creating this FAQ. But see what I mentioned of section 501C, you know, which is what I thought, but it's always good to check. Just because the tax code and FinCen regulation are so like thousands and thousands of pages. So, you know, those are the requirements that you have to follow on the tax exempt organization. Okay. I mean, this is saying, hey, you have not lost it, you know, and like you still like operate and you know, like a political organization or in a trust. So those are like the 4 criteria. You know, if any of the 4 criteria applies to your tax exempt entity. So, you know, once you meet one of the criteria, you're good. But yeah, when you have questions on these items, research, which doesn't happen too often. A lot of times people think they know and they don't. So always like, you know, that's important. That's the reason this is for educational purposes, as each case is different, just because so many times research is needed.
Yep. And I think if I had lots of questions and I couldn't talk to really anyone, Victor, I think I would just go and read the FAQs just
Yep.
because like, you know, it would sometimes even, you know, answer the questions I didn't even know I had. So that would definitely help.
Yeah, get professional help sometimes. It's just
Yeah.
whoever you're working or whoever like you know us at this point, but like anyone that is usually working and is familiar. Otherwise, it's so many times it's not worth the penalties and interest and everything or the fines. So just get professional advice sometimes. It's worth you know avoiding a headache later on or a big fine.
Exactly. Better safe than sorry. That's always as the saying goes. All right, so we do have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, and we'll cut off there. So if there are any more questions after that, just email us, let us know. But these 4 questions we'll take. Jen asks, do you have to file the BOI again, as in like yearly, annually, even if there are no changes in your business?
No. There's only requirement to file an update if there are changes. This is not an annual report. This is not like a tax return that you have to do annually. You just have to report to FinCen, and if there are changes, then you have to report. But there's not like requirement of like a range time period that you have to file every certain period. So no.
Got it. Next question is from Ruben. If you have a 401k and the value is less than 250k, do you have to report it? What happens if you don't report it?
Well, if you have a 401k, those are savings that you're putting away. So there's no, you don't report on the balance of your 401k unless you withdraw from that 401k. So when you put money on your 401k, and I'm assuming it's a traditional 401k, it will be a deduction against your income of that year. And then later on, hopefully in retirement, you pull out money. I mean, sometimes you're subject to requirement minimum distributions, but when you pull out money at that time, you're paying taxes on it. But no one reports balances on retirement accounts. That's not taxable. Just because you have money sitting in your 401k, that's not taxable until, you pull part of that money.
Right. Next question. Do I need a beneficiary for my business? Should I put my husband? He is not a co-owner. I own the company 100%. How should I proceed?
So if you own the company 100%, you're the beneficial owner of the business. You have the control, direct and indirect. You have more than like the 25%. So there's only one. The beneficial owner in the majority of cases is just the owner of the business. They just create this beneficial owner because in money laundering, you might have a middleman, someone that you put the business in that person's name, but then the real control happens somewhere else, so it's just like, if that happened, they can go harder on them through FinCen. Kind of that's the idea. For like the majority of businesses, 99% that they are required to file, the same people that have either the membership interest in an LLC or partnership or shareholder, right, the shares, that will be who is the beneficial owner. So
Thank you. And last question, this is going back to when you answered the question for Zelle, Venmo, and such. So the follow-up question to that is it better for my clients to pay them by Zelle than credit card?
I mean, that's each case is different. I don't know if it's better. I mean, in our business, we like ACH. I'm not supporting Zelle or Bill.com or whatever. I mean, whatever. I mean, the credit card, that you will be subject to credit card fees. So usually we encourage, ACH, check, Zelle. But I mean, for business, we don't have Zelle in our business. So, but ACH is usually cheaper for the person or the business receiving the money, right? Credit card fees could be 2.5, 3%. So we try to encourage, I mean, if it's like monthly retainers for accounting or tax return or certain things, we authorize bank transfers more than credit cards. If there's credit cards, you can see certain business, they charge, the credit card fee. So.
Got it. And that concludes our Q&A session. So thank you so much, Victor, for answering all the questions. Oh, we just had someone, the anonymous says, I missed the answer. Does a nonprofit have to file a BOI? You don't have to. If you meet the requirements, you are on the exemption list. All right. I was paying attention.
That's really good.
Yep. So let's go ahead and let me share my screen, and let's go ahead with what is coming up next. We are done with the Q&A. Before this, Victor, thank you so much again for joining us today. We hope to have you again and again every year, every 6 months, whenever it is that we need you. Thank you so much for all the valuable information. We always appreciate having you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and don't get in trouble. Take care.
Yep. Don't get in trouble. All right. So our attendees, thank you for sticking with us this long. Upcoming webinars, Thursday, June 20th, we have NJ Wage Laws for Small Business Success with the New Jersey Department of Labor. Join us on Thursday, June 20th, same time as always, 12 p.m. to 1 or 1:30 p.m., depending on how packed our webinars are. If you are interested on what's happening with the wage and hour laws, for your small business and how it impacts you as a small business, definitely join us. This would be great and very informational. Again, same time as always, just next Thursday. Scan that QR code quickly to register, or just go to our Eventbrite page and register for the event. All right, and that is it from us today. Thank you so much for joining us. NJSBDC has helped more than 15,000 plus small businesses grow over the 46 years that we have been in existence. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your support. We always appreciate it. If you'd like to learn more about our organization, go to njsbdc.com. Check out our website, take a minute or two out of your day, check it out, and let us know if you ever have any questions, then reach out to us. We're happy to help you and we're happy to support you. Take care, and we'll see you next Thursday. Bye.